paints. This one goes fairly quickly because we're trying to do wet paint and wet a surface. We're not really wetting every surface all at once, but we will do quite a bit of dampening to let those colors flow. As you can see in the picture, they're really quite soft, and that's because we're putting fresh paint on a wet surface. The reason, and I know it's only 2 lines on there, but the reason that I sent that out is so we have a really good guide for the opening of our autumn path. Horizontal, same as a horizon. So a horizon would go from side to side. So that's how our picture is today. So in those lines, if you can see, the one is above the upper corner and the other one is inside the other corner. Go right to the bottom, then curve around because we want it to look like a path. So welcome again. Thank you for joining. This is watercolor art class. My name is Cathy. I teach step by step. This is a fairly quick moving picture that we'll do today because it's flowy and lots of water used to give us that really soft effect. So you'll need some paper towel. You'll need 2 water dishes, one to keep clear, one to rinse your brushes. Already I rinsed a brush. Brushes, I just have a number 3. You may want a bigger brush for some of the foliage in the back. I do find that a number 3 gives me just about all that I need. If you have a credit card or a gift card, now I just cut mine in half when I'm finished using them. So we're just going to use the rounded edge. So if you have one of those, if it's not cut in half, don't cut a new one in half, but just drag one out of your wallet. You'll be able to put it back in, no cost to you. So just have that handy. I've gone ahead and I have dipped a little bit of water into all of my colors, black, red. I have an orange. If you don't have orange, when you mix red and yellow, they make a beautiful orange. We're also going to use yellow and ochre, 2 different kinds of green. If you have them, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have 2. One, I've suggested either hooker's green or deep green, and a burnt umber. So those are the colors. So I've just tapped a bit of water in my tray. If you've got a spray bottle, just enact those colors and we'll be good to go in a minute or so. So just give ourselves a moment to release anything that's troubling you, anything going on, that you give yourself this gift of 1 hour time to just come into art mode and just focus on right now. So we'll just start with taking some deep breaths and releasing them, and we'll just drop our shoulders down as we do that. So we'll take a deep breath in, hold your breath for a second, and then let go and drop those shoulders down. Another deep breath in, and just hold at the top of that breath, and then let go and drop those shoulders down. And a third time, deep breath in and release. And while you're painting, hanging on to your paintbrush, the lighter grip you have on your paintbrush, the more flow you'll find that you'll have. Hanging on for dear life is not necessary. So it just, I will try to remind you throughout the class just to take a deep breath. This is a piece of paper. Or if you have a canvas, it's just a canvas. It's not life-threatening. We're just practicing. It's about learning something new, being with like-minded artists, enjoying our company together, seeing what we come up with as a group. We will do a collage at the end for those that haven't joined before. And with that, we'll get started. So I'll just turn my camera a little bit so that you can see See the canvas. If I'm going too fast for anyone, let me know and I'll slow down. That's not a problem. We have 2 lines drawn. If you don't have the lines drawn, you can have a look at the picture that is profiled that we're working on today and just draw that outline. It's good to follow that path for this picture. So I'm just using clear water and I'm just going to get the path wet with clear water. So I'm painting the path, only the path, just with clear water. So this will take a few minutes to do. Take your time. It doesn't have to be sopping wet, just enough that you've covered the surface with water. And if anybody's just coming on, we're just starting to get this path wet. This is all we're doing right now. It's just wetting the path, just with clear water. And in a moment, we'll do the fun stuff. We'll start to put on some color. So firstly, we just want to get that path done. So you can see if I hold it at an angle, you can see that that's wet. If I hold it at a certain angle, I can look and see if there's any spots that I've missed. They'll be dry or you'll see them. Just hold it on an angle if you need to. And just touch those up with water. And then we're going to go into ochre. So I'm not using a full dark ochre. I want this to be a fairly light path. So I'm just putting ochre on my path. If the water's already there, so I know that the surface is going to move, I can help it a little bit. I want it to be a fairly light ochre. I'm just doing the surface of the path. That's all. Because I wet that ahead of time, it's going to lighten up as it dries even more. It doesn't even have to be a particularly even surface all the way along. If it's lighter or darker in some spots, that's okay. I just want to cover the surface with some color. So I'm not leaving a white spot on my path. So there's a narrow part of the path and a wider part of the path where we can see more. So this is a smaller part on the one side where the path comes halfway, starts halfway up the page or a third up the way up the page. We're going to work on that side first. So we're going to start with our orange. Remember that red and yellow mixed together makes orange, unless you already have orange. So we're just going to make an edge along just from the tip of our, and this is wet paint on dry. So just from the tip of our edge of our forest, we're just going to start to put paint on and come down along the edge of the path. So I'm not even doing a straight line. I'm looking for an uneven line where I'm just taking my brush and I'm just tapping on that color. If I go inside the edge, that's okay. I do want the line covered. How dark is the orange? Mine is called quinacridone. You would put more red than yellow. Let's see if I can make that. Yeah, I'm using red on a canvas just to show you. I'm putting some yellow beside it. So I've got red and I've got yellow. I'm going to mix them, but I want more red than yellow. So I'm not putting in a whole lot of yellow. I still want it to be quite orangey. So I'm just adding a little bit of yellow to a nice bright orange or a nice bright red, and you should come up. This is the orange that I'm using, so they're pretty similar. So if you don't have ochre, brown and yellow mixed together makes ochre. Just mostly yellow, but add a touch of just a touch of brown, and you'll come up with ochre. We're not done with this line. We're going to put ochre above this line. So before we finish with this line, come back on the top of that line with clear water. Just at the top of your jaggedy line, we're going to put some water, clear water. And once you have that clear water on, we're going to add ochre above it in that clear water that you've just put together. And we'll blend those colors together so that it starts to look very soft. So above the orange, I put clear water, and then I put ochre. And then I started blending upward into, so the colors start to mold or meld together. So you get even a higher line of orange. It's darker at the bottom, but it's blending into the ochre. So just work it for a few minutes. Don't worry about too much working it. Just blending that together. We don't want it dry first. No, we want it to be, you want to be working the colors together. That's what will give you that softness. No, we're not waiting for anything to dry in this picture. So above that, we're going to put green. So we're going to make the shape of bushes about 1 inch tall above what you've just done. So I've just got some funny shapes there. They look kind of odd. And then I'm going to fill those in with paint, coming right to the edge of my orange and ochre, right to the outside edge. I'm not worried. If it starts to blend a little bit into my orange, that's okay. I don't want it so wet. It's probably better if it's not so wet that it completely blends in. But we want it to look like we have bushes at the outer edge of our forest. Now above that green, I'm going to get the rest wet. So I'm just going above the green straight up. And I'm just going to get the rest of the back of the forest wet. And if it starts to run too much, you can just tap that off with a towel. That's just clear water. See, some of that green has run a little bit into my orange. That's okay. I might tap a little bit. I don't want it too much, but it's okay that it blends in. If it starts to run a little, that's okay. And once you have that water on, from the base of the green straight up, I'm going to make a tree. And yes, it will start to spread a little bit. You want your trees to be straight up and down.
What color is that?
This is black. And a second tree beside that one. While that's still wet, I'm going to put on my orange. So this is my orange. Again, we've got the orange below. We're going to put some more orange on. So I want this orange in as trees in the forest, the leaves of the trees. So I'm just tapping that orange on where it's wet. It's okay. It's going to sit on top of some of the black. It's going to start to blend a little bit. And I'm going to add some red. So I want that brightness of the red in there with the orange. And I can run it right down the side of the trees. And I'm just, you can see, I'm just tapping my brush with the red. Just tapping that on. So you can still see the orange. And you can see that nice bright red. Now everybody's forest is going to look a little bit different. We might have different size brushes or just a tad different color paint. We're just looking for an autumn forest. I want to add a little bit of that yellow up the top, or ochre if you've got it. I'm just adding a bit of yellow up the top, just for some additional brightness, that look of the sun maybe peeking through. And anywhere that there's a white spot, I'm just going to cover that with the ochre or yellow. So just remember, just take a deep breath. It's just a piece of paper. It's not about perfection. It's just about learning something new and trying something different. I put in the black trees. I put in orange. Then I put red in some spots, just periodically red. And then I put yellow or ochre at the very top, just to give that little bit of brightness. So if I hold it close, you might see that. I'm holding it that close and you can see that there's no need for absolute perfection. From a distance, it will look like a tree. And we have time always at the end. We can do some adjustments and make those trees stand out a little bit more if we want to. But at this point, we want that color, that vibrancy. And you can see some is a little bit lighter in mine and some is a little bit darker, which shows almost looks like there's a little bit of light coming through. So don't think that it has to be completely filled in and perfect. So we're almost at halftime. I'm going to read our halftime card and then we'll move on to the middle of the forest. So I'll read from our May You Know Joy meditation cards. It's from Everyday Living or for Everyday Living. The word for today is simplicity. Thank you, Monica. So simplicity. May you know the beauty of simplicity and may you find it in your life. If you just peeled away all of the extra stuff, all of the shoulds and have-tos and everything that causes you stress, what gift would you be left holding? Know the people and places and thoughts and ideas and dreams that are meant to be here in the simple and uncomplicated place. They are your truth and they will bring you joy. Lighten your load and keep it simple. May you know simplicity. Thank you for that, Monica. That was beautiful. All right. We are going to wet the top of our, the back of our forest, just in the center, right beside the orange that we put on and at the top of the path. We're just getting that wet with, well, clear water. I say clear water, but my water is turned a little colored. If you have clean water, that's good. Try to keep the top of your path fairly clear. When you have that water on there, we're going to put ochre, which again, if you don't have ochre, if you mix yellow and a dot of brown, will give you ochre. So we're putting ochre above our path. We don't need it too dark, but we do want to see that it's an opening at the back. And when you have that on there, we don't want to go all the way to the top, but we do want to come from the top of the path. So just in black. So I'm using black on this wet ochre that we've just put there from the top, or the top of the path. We're putting trees. So see, they're not a full tree, but we are going to do them so they're a straight line. If you can do a straight line coming up into the ochre. They are going to start to meld into the ochre and look a little bit hazy. And while we're at that spot, we're going to, the first tree that we've done, we're going to get the little corner wet at the side and add a fresh dot of orange in there, or red and yellow. This is fresh, right beside the side of our path. So this is where our path starts to turn. So we want that to look like that path now is turning. And we're going to start with our burnt umber and we're going to work down the other side. So underneath those trees, I'm using burnt umber and I'm doing a dotted line. It doesn't have to be a perfect line. And I'm bringing that line all the way down to the bottom, all the way down to the bottom of the page. This is burnt umber. It's a watery burnt umber. It's brown. So it's from right under those trees all the way down to the bottom. Once you've got that line on, we're going to soften it with water just to lighten it up a little bit more. So I'm just using clear water and I'm just softening that line. Just using clear water and pulling that line over just to soften that color. So I'm going to use a bigger brush at this point, and I'm going to get the rest of the canvas wet with water. I'm just using clear water where it hasn't been wet before. I'm just getting that wet all the way to the bottom, right from the side of the middle where we have those trees, all the way down. I'm going to create that forest again. The top is orange. It comes about 1.5 inches away from the outer edge at the top. So I've got that orange. Because my paper is wet, it's going to run a little bit. So I'm just going to keep putting on fresh orange as it gets deeper and deeper. I'm trying to keep in mind that the trees grow up and down, so trying to have that color go up and down. I want a little bit of red in there. You can see how that really pops now. That red is starting to blend with the orange. I want that right up top. And like before, I want to add a little bit of that ochre just at the top and let that flow through. Below that, at the side, I want some green for some trees. You can even run a little bit along the edge. And while I've got that green out, I'm going to fill right to the top corner with green coming down while that paper is still wet. Let that green come down. And while this is wet, I want to put in my trees. Just so it doesn't look too stark, I'm going to add a little bit of orange in and around the tops of those trees, just so that it blends in. And remembering that watercolor dries 20 to 30%, just put some markings that will give the look of tree growth. Because it's this, even if it's the same color green, because it's fresh on top, it will add to the dimensions of what you've got already on there. I added a little bit more orange at the tops of them so they didn't look quite so stark. I don't want it to look like it's a solid mass, so I just lightened it a little bit. Yep, so I just soften that end just with fresh color. So there's a softer green at the base of the trees, and that's made by either mixing yellow and green together. You get an olivey color, more yellow than green. It's a really soft, a pale, like I said, almost an olivey color. So we'll just give a little bit of that color at the base of those trees. I'm just kind of moving my brush around just to pop that on there, just to soften the look. A little bit of different foliage in the forest. And I'm going to take it right to the outside edge. So it's almost like there's a line there. So you can take it right to the bottoms of the trees. So you should have a little bit of a V at the side coming down the path. We're going to fill that part down to the bottom with orange, a light orange. So water your orange down a little bit, and we're going to put that right down to the bottom edge. So this is orange. It's different than it's different than the brown that we had on there before. This is an orange. And then we're going to fill in this bottom corner. And the bottom corner is a mixture of burnt umber and ochre, but more of the burnt umber. So it's a brown, but it's not dark brown. It's a softer brown. It's a lighter brown. So you can water down your burnt umber if that works for you. And we're just going to go ahead and we'll fill in that corner. And even though there's green there, we should cover over or try to cover over that green. But we are going to add some markings so that it will partially disappear. We'll come back to that brown or the burnt umber, and I'm just using the side of my brush, and I'm just going to put some marks. I'm not looking for them to be anything specific. They don't have to be straight. They don't have to be rounded. It's just marks that look like possible leaves in the forest floor or rocks or just earth. You can take your credit card, and with your credit card, you can pull up with the rounded edge, pull up on some of that, the brown marks that you've made. Just give the look of little grass. So you're just using the corner and you're just pulling up, remembering that grass doesn't always grow straight up and down. Sometimes it grows to the side. Sometimes it crosses over each other. But as you do this, you'll start to see in some places you might get some nice little light clear spots, which are very pretty. And I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber just in a few spots along the side of the path. So it's fairly wet, burnt umber. And I'm going to pull up and give the look of grasses just along the path. And it looks like we have time, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to touch up some of my trees that are sort of disappeared. I don't want to completely rebuild the trees, but I want to add a little bit of definition here and there. So this is what I've done with one tree. And I'm going to add a row of trees very lightly in that little green section that we painted. So I've just added a grouping of trees in that green section. So you can continue working on any edges and just softening them so that they blend better together. I'm just going to add a little bit of dark just down the side of my path. So as I said, you can continue to work on it and you can soften your edges. You can manipulate a few things. You can widen your path a little bit if you like, or you can leave it as is. Just have fun with it. Just take a deep breath. Just a piece of paper. That's what art is. Something to play with, something to learn from. And if it's not perfect and you're not 100% happy with it, you have the outline. You can go back and you can recreate this. You've got some of the tips. It's really great to have a nice opening for a picture. And as it's fall coming, now we have a taste of fall. So this is kind of fun to explore with. So, but just keep softening if that's what you need to do. Just allow the colors to blend together. And that's what you can do in 1 hour. So the biggest thing we have to do at this point is decide where are we going to put our artist signature. So typically I like to have mine blend right into the picture, being part of it. So I'm going to put mine right into my grasses on the side. So we're at the top of the hour. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something new, and there was a lot of blending of colors. A little bit tricky to do. It looked like easy to begin with, didn't it? And they're totally opposite when I look at the two on the screen. One opens one way and one opens the other. Not that they're wrong, it's just that's the way they're portraying on the screen. So thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed that and learned something. Bye-bye.